One night in the forest, a man noticed traps set in front of a house while he was walking toward it, having heard the crying of a baby from the mountains. He picked up his weapon, wondering if someone was attempting to sneak in. He thought that if anyone tried to steal from him, it would be disastrous for them, and that no one should dare target a hunter's cabin. He moved quietly to investigate and realized that whoever was bypassing all his traps so silently could not be an ordinary robber. He feared that the intruder might be dead before even noticing him. Following the sound, he hurried to the source but found no one and wondered if he was experiencing another hallucination. Since discovering that the cries could not belong to their own children, he continued to hear them until he finally found a newborn baby lying nearby. Confused, he quickly picked up the baby, trying to remain calm. His wife, Olena, then arrived, curious about the commotion. As she approached and saw the baby, she asked if it was indeed a child. Vincent hesitated, uncertain how to explain, but finally suggested that he believed the baby belonged to them both. Someone reading in a book later recorded that something extraordinary happened at that moment. The baby opened his eyes, raised his hand, and a gust of wind blew, summoning clouds above. Rain soon fell, quenching the parched earth, while the townsfolk rejoiced and sang. And the child had also protected the town from threats beyond, and through his mystical powers, the townspeople found peace, no longer experiencing hunger or thirst. Yet he did not rest and continued his research for the benefit of the town. Everyone was so amazed by his powers that they called him a mage. The boy had just closed the book when his father arrived, curious about what he had been reading. The boy was none other than Sirone, 12 years old and the son of Vincent, which meant that 12 years had passed since the day Vincent had found him. Vincent lifted Sirone and spun him around, remarking that the woods had all been chopped and suggesting they go home to read. Sirone was genuinely delighted, and after a moment, he asked his father how someone could use magic. Vincent kissed him and then paused, wondering if that was what the book his mother had given him was about. Sirone asked if such things could really exist. Vincent explained that magic was as simple as bringing down a deer with a single arrow, or felling a tree with a single axe strike. Some of the villagers had noticed Vincent and Sirone and recalled that whenever they had invited Sirone to play, he had always refused, preferring to read his books. Another boy remarked that the book Sirone read was enormous and doubted whether he truly understood it. They called Sirone lanky and wobbly, noting that he did not resemble his father. Someone mentioned that they had heard from Sirone's mother that Vincent had found him abandoned and assumed his real parents no longer wanted him. Vincent clenched his hands in anger at the thought, firmly believing that Sirone was truly his son. Sirone, however, seemed happy and remarked that felling a tree with a single strike really was magic. Vincent told Sirone that since he had helped with the work, he would take him to the city the next day to get the fruits he wanted. Sirone seemed genuinely thrilled at the news. Vincent felt a pang of guilt, wishing he could offer Sirone more, but he reminded himself that no matter what anyone said, Sirone was his son. Sirone remained excited, not only about the fruits, but also about learning more about magic. The next day, they traveled together to Cryas, a city in the kingdom of Tornia. Sirone was fascinated by the bustling streets and the market, where all manner of goods were being sold. They moved with the convoy, and once they arrived, Vincent set Sirone down and instructed him to wait for Martin's grandfather while he completed some errands. He warned Sirone not to wander into any alleys or approach the nobles. Sirone reassured him, promising not to worry. While waiting, Sirone met the elderly man and wrote blueberry and its price on a board. The man was astonished that Sirone could write so well at such a young age and thanked him. Sirone modestly replied that it was fine, as he liked helping people. The old man remarked that Sirone was far beyond his years and expressed a wish that his own grandchildren might act as thoughtfully. Then he asked if Sirone knew anything about magic. The old man, noticing the chapstick, and wondered if he used it, and asked how Sirone thought magic could be used. Seeing the excitement on Sirone's face, the old man quickly tempered it, admitting that he did not know much about magic himself. However, he directed Sirone to the bookstore he was after, suggesting he look there. As Sirone rushed off, the old man offered to let him take a quick look and promised to return soon. Sirone thanked him and assured him he would be back. The old man glanced at the book Sirone had been reading, and recalled that he had enjoyed similar fairy tale books at that age. Yet he noticed something unusual. Sirone was touching the book in a way that suggested he was asking about how to use magic. At that moment, a lady stopped by, scolding Sirone to keep his hands off the book. Sirone wondered if he couldn't even peek inside. The lady, visibly annoyed, remarked that the books were expensive and not some cheap farmer's almanac from a dime shop, implying they deserved careful handling. The lady seemed angered at Sirone, wondering if he had bought all 4 books himself and if he intended to make them look like second-hand copies. Sirone, realizing how expensive the books were, wondered where his father had gotten them. At that moment, a man entered and asked if the entire order of books had arrived. The lady greeted him, confirming that everything had come and inquiring how he wished to pay. The man glanced at Sirone, who was flipping through the pages, thinking there was nothing noteworthy. Afterwards, Sirone stepped out, aware that some books were difficult to examine, and he noticed the scent lingering on his hands. A while later, he saw a man carrying away a large number of books. Curious, Sirone wondered if the man was a noble and where he was taking them. To his surprise, all the books were being thrown into the garbage, and in that moment, Sirone understood where his father had obtained his collection. He glanced at the noble ladies chatting and giggling with their books from a distance and wondered what made them different from him, why they got what they wanted while he did not. As Sirone approached them, a man grabbed his shoulder to stop him, telling him that this was not a place for someone like him to run around and that only nobles were allowed beyond that gate. The men began speculating about Sirone's parents. Hesitating, Sirone explained that his father was nearby. One guard whispered to another that something seemed off. Sirone did not appear to belong there and might be an orphan, perhaps even a grandchild raised by thieves. They instructed him to follow, but soon realized that Sirone was no longer there. Surprised that they had let a child escape, they wondered where he had gone. Sirone hid nearby among the flowers, quietly waiting until he thought the guards had left, but he could not hear his father. He noticed a pair of shoes lying nearby and crept closer. From his position near the wall, he overheard a conversation from the opposite side, where people were discussing magic. Someone had asked their teacher to demonstrate magic, specifically to show how to extinguish a fire. Sirone wondered if that place could be the magic school. The headmaster told the students that they were not allowed to play with fire in the school, but he would show them something if they answered his question. He asked what was the most important thing for learning magic. The students replied that it was knowledge and ability. One of them said it was ability because they studied magic for life, while another mentioned money, as mage robes were very expensive. The headmaster laughed and said that none of them had given the correct answer. The narrator realized that it was not knowledge, ability, or even money, so perhaps one had to be noble for that. The headmaster then explained that the most important thing for learning magic was insight. The children asked what insight was. He asked if any of them did not know the answer to 1 + 1, and everyone replied that it was 2. He then asked why the answer was 2. The students hesitated, and the headmaster explained that what they felt was insight. He told them that there was a time when living creatures did not know that 1 + 1 = 2, and it took the work of countless scholars to build their collective knowledge. Now, people could understand that 1 + 1 = 2 without needing to analyze or verify it. The principles established by those before them had allowed such understanding to be reached as a whole. Magic was another concept whose principles they inherited, enabling them to learn its entirety through the power of insight. One student remarked that insight was the sharpener of knowledge and swifter than ability. The headmaster praised the comment, saying that they could become mages with even a little cultivation. Sirone wondered if that meant he had a chance as well, and the headmaster agreed, calling him the boy beyond the wall and saying he would like to hear what Sirone had done. Sirone looked startled, unsure whether to run or answer, and appeared to be a total mess, so no one could predict what might happen to him. Suddenly, he realized that if he did not climb the wall now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. He then climbed the wall to look at the academy. In the garden, the headmaster was sitting with many children. Headmaster Alpheus invited Sirone to come and join their conversation, and Sirone jumped from the wall to join them. As Sirone was heading towards them, the students exclaimed that he seemed more like a prisoner than a person, so he could not come near them. Sirone hesitated, and the headmaster told the students not to worry and to let Sirone join them, asking him to explain what had made him jump over the wall. Sirone said that he wanted to see magic. The headmaster wondered if he had never seen it before. Sirone replied that he had only read about it in books. The students still called him a liar, saying that prisoners could not read. Sirone bowed and said he did not care about that. He only wanted to see magic. The headmaster laughed and told Sirone that he did not need to beg for something so simple, and he would call the wind for him. The students grew excited. Sirone wondered how it would appear, and then the headmaster used his magic to lift all the students into the sky. They all found it hilarious. Sirone worried that he would just fall back down and screamed in fear, but he did not get hurt while the students laughed at him. The headmaster asked Sirone how it felt and remarked that this was some magic for him. Sirone asked what kind of magic it was. The headmaster suggested that they think of an example. Sirone said that he did not care if it was hard to understand, he just wanted the truth. The students wondered if they had ever heard anyone speak to the headmaster so boldly. The headmaster said he would be honest in his explanation. He explained that magic was an act that broke the general laws of the world, and he could also call it the mental application of exploring the truth in phenomena, though he understood if that was hard to grasp. Sirone wondered if it was like an anomalous event, and questioned why it was still considered closer to the truth.